Did you know that until 1974, milking your neighbor's cow was considered illegal in Texas? That's right, picture it, the Lone Star State, 1866. A law gets passed that makes it illegal to milk someone else's cow without their consent. An unusual law indeed, but one that was taken very seriously. This law stated verbatim, "Whoever without the consent of the owner shall take up, use or milk any cow not his own. If you dared to do so, you'd face a fine of $10. That might not seem like a lot now, but back in the day, $10 was a hefty sum. Now you might be wondering, why on earth would there be a need for such a law? It's a fair question. The answer lies in the importance of cows in the 19th century. Cows were vital to the livelihoods of many Texans. They provided milk, an essential food source, and were often a symbol of wealth and prosperity. To milk another person's cow without permission was akin to theft, depriving the owner of their property and potential income. But it wasn't just about the economic implications, there was also a matter of respect and neighborly conduct. In a time when communities were tightly knit and everyone knew everyone else's business, respecting another person's property was a given. Milking a neighbor's cow without consent was a breach of that unspoken trust. This all may seem a bit humorous to us now, in an age where milk is readily available at our local grocery stores. But back then, it was a serious matter. An intrusion on one's cow was an intrusion on their livelihood and their dignity. So the next time you pour yourself a glass of milk, spare a thought for those Texans of yesteryear, navigating the terrain of neighborly conduct and cow ownership. Imagine being fined for milking a cow that wasn't yours. That was the reality in Texas until 1974. But what was Texas like in 1866 when this law was enacted? Well, let's take a journey back in time. Picture this. The Civil War had just ended the previous year, and Texas, like the rest of the South, was in a state of recovery. The state's economy was largely agrarian, with cattle farming playing a significant role. In fact, the cattle industry was the backbone of the Texas economy. This was the era of the Great Cattle Drives, with thousands of longhorns being herded from Texas to railway stations in Kansas. The cattle then journeyed across the country, their meat feeding a nation that was rapidly industrializing and urbanizing. But it wasn't just about the meat. Dairy production was also a vital part of the economy. Many families owned cows and relied on them for milk, which was not only consumed directly, but also used to make butter, cheese, and other dairy products. In a time before refrigeration, fresh milk was a precious commodity that couldn't be easily replaced if stolen. So, you see, cattle and dairy cows weren't just animals. They were livelihoods, essential parts of an economic engine that kept Texas moving. They represented sustenance, commerce, and survival. In this context, the law against milking your neighbor's cow without permission begins to make more sense. It was not just about discouraging petty theft, it was about protecting property, ensuring economic stability, and maintaining social order. In a time and place where one's wealth and well-being could be measured in cattle, illicitly milking someone else's cow was tantamount to stealing their livelihood. So, in the context of 1866, this law may not seem as unusual as it does today. It was a reflection of the times, a safeguard against the theft of a critical resource. It was, in essence, a law born out of necessity. What was life like while this law was in effect? Let's journey back to a time when your neighbor's cow was off limits. Picture this. You're a Texan farmer in the late 19th century. You wake up early in the morning, just as dawn is breaking. You've got your own cows to milk, but one day, you notice that your neighbor's cow is full of milk, and he's nowhere in sight. You think to yourself, well, it would be a shame to let that milk go to waste. But you remember that milking your neighbor's cow without permission is against the law, and the fine is $10, quite a hefty sum back in those days. So instead you go about your day, milking your own cows and tending to your other chores. But the thought of that full, unmilked cow nags at you. It's a sight that's hard to ignore. You may even worry about the cow's discomfort. But the law is the law, and you don't want to risk a fine or worse, a feud with your neighbor. Now consider the law enforcement of this period. The local sheriff, perhaps, having to investigate claims of illicit cow milking. Picture him, cowboy hat tipped low, knocking on the doors of local farms, asking pointed questions about the morning's activities. There would be no forensic evidence, of course, just the word of one farmer against another. Imagine the courtroom dramas, the testimonies, and cross-examinations. Your Honor, I swear I did not milk that cow. It's easy to see how such a law could lead to neighborly disputes and even divide communities. And yet, the people of Texas lived under this law for over 100 years. It was a part of their everyday life. a unique quirk of their legal system that they had to navigate. One can only imagine the kind of disputes that might have arisen over a cow's milk. Fast forward to 1974, and the law is finally repealed. It was not a day too soon, as the world had changed considerably since the time the law was first enacted back in 1866. One of the primary reasons for the repeal was the change in society structure. As we moved further into the 20th century, the way we lived our lives underwent a drastic transformation. The agrarian society of the past, where everyone owned a cow or two and a neighbor's cow was just a fence away, was replaced by urbanization and industrialization. The number of people who owned cows decreased significantly, and the relevance of a law preventing the milking of a neighbor's cow diminished alongside it. The economy also played a significant role in the repeal. The rising popularity of supermarkets and commercial dairies meant that milk was no longer a scarce commodity that needed to be fiercely guarded. It was easier and more convenient for people to buy milk from stores than to own and care for a cow. This shift in consumption patterns rendered the law obsolete. Furthermore, the evolution of the legal system contributed to the decision. The law, which was once considered necessary to maintain order and protect personal property, was now seen as a quirky relic of the past. The focus of the legal system had shifted from such specific laws to more general ones that could cater to a wide range of situations. The theft of property laws, for instance, now covered the act of illicitly milking a neighbor's cow. It's also worth noting that the fine of $10, a substantial amount back in the day, had lost its sting over the years due to inflation. This further highlighted the law's redundancy, and thus, the era of illegal cow milking in Texas came to an end. A law that was once a necessity had become a humorous footnote in the state's history, a testament to the ever-changing nature of society and the legal system. But what legacy did this unusual law leave behind? Well, interestingly enough, the spirit of the 1866 cow milking law still lives on in Texas through the realm of cattle farming and dairy production regulations. Though you might not be fined $10 for milking your neighbor's cow anymore, the Lone Star State still takes the protection of property rights, particularly livestock, very seriously. Today, Texas law includes stringent regulations around cattle farming, from the treatment of animals to the production and sale of dairy products. These rules ensure that cattle farming remains ethical, sustainable, and respectful towards the rights of the owners. In a sense, the essence of the old law, the protection of a neighbor's property, remains firmly intact. Moreover, the 1866 cow milking law has also found its place in the annals of unusual legislation, often used as a humorous example in discussions around legal history. It's a testament to how societal norms and values change over time, and how the law adapts to these shifts. The law also serves as a reminder of the importance of context. What may seem absurd in the present day was, in fact, a practical and necessary regulation in the past. The law reflected the economic realities and societal values of the time, where cattle were a significant source of livelihood, and unauthorized use of someone else's cow could lead to severe financial loss. In essence, the legacy of the 1866 law is twofold. On one hand, it underscores the importance of respecting property rights, a principle that continues to govern contemporary laws around livestock and dairy production in Texas. On the other hand, it serves as a humorous yet insightful snapshot of a bygone era, a quirky piece of legal history that continues to spark conversations and chuckles today. So next time you're in Texas and see a cow, remember you're now legally allowed to milk it, but only with the owner's permission.